Now, you're watching Wave 3 News Listens Live.
And it is a celebration.
With your host, John Ramsey.
Welcome to Wave 3 Listens Live. I'm Michael Vanover, filling in for John Ramsey the rest of the week, and I'm so excited to be with you, and we appreciate you making us part of your day. We've got a full show for you. We're going to talk to the folks from Rev Body Sculpting coming up in a little bit. Learning how to look better, and I always like that. So Amy's going to help us out with that. But first, we're going to talk to a familiar face of the program, Larry Weiss, the owner and president of Elder Advisors, joins me. And Larry, it's good to see you again.
Likewise. And what's this feeling so bad about yourself that you're Michael filling in for? You are Michael of Wave 3.
That's true.
Listens Live.
Yes, thank you.
Make no mistake.
About 8 years of filling in for John.
No, stop it. You're an important person. You're important here at Wave 3. You're Michael, Wave 3, Listens Live.
I like that. That's why we like to have Larry on the show. It makes me feel better about myself.
I feel that I have to be your cheerleader everywhere.
Right. Well, thank you. Thank you for doing that. Now,
Tammy said your dry cleaning will be ready at 3. Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you, Tammy. Tammy's talking to us for sure about everything going on here today. But one of the things, there are new viewers always watching us, and I want to make sure that they know all about Elder Advisors. Can you give me a little bit of background?
Well, of course. Well, first, happy Ash Wednesday.
Yes.
What Elder Advisors does is we're very unique. What we do is we help families transition their loved ones from their homes to home health care, assisted living, or long-term care environments using financial and legal strategies to protect their assets so they don't go broke in a nursing home. Because the reality is, Michael, you don't have to. Even if someone's in a nursing home going through $7,000 a month, they just cashed out their last CD, they're down to $25,000, we can still help. We can still protect those assets so they don't otherwise spin down to $2,000 and go broke. Because as Mr. Langdon, the attorney, he's our guest speaker at the workshops we're having next week, tells people for husband and wife, if one spouse goes into a nursing home, we can protect all the assets. Steve Langdon calls those the special exceptions. For a single person, we can protect about half. Well, half of something's better than all of nothing. And that's what we do, but it does take a unique skill set to do that. That's why we're doing our workshops next week, Monday night, 6 p.m. at 4 Points by Sheraton on Crittenden Drive. And for the Indiana folk, thank you, Tammy. Tim, you're a little late on that panel coming up. Get on the next segue. Thank you. But then for Indiana, it'll be Tuesday, 10 a.m. at the Hampton Inn on Broadway. But there's a lot to that, but we can protect those assets so families don't go broke in a nursing home.
Well, I think what's interesting about the don't go broke in a nursing home slogan is that there are a lot of people that feel like they just chalk it up like, you know what, that's just what you do.
Right.
You save up your whole life, you get to enjoy retirement, and then guess what? You go broke in there. And that's not the answer. I mean, there is solutions out there.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important people realize that.
And Michael, you're so correct, because what happens is people are just dismissive. They throw their hands up, because they go to the coffee club. You know those 8 cars at McDonald's every morning? Those guys are there from 6:30 to 8. They're talking. They may know a lot about what they did in their life, but they don't know this. And the problem is, well-intentioned, they may have told their friend or someone at church that, well, my wife went through this with her brother, whatever. That's probably not accurate. Certainly not if you have the right skill set. With Steve Langdon, McNeely Stevenson Law Firm on the legal component, and certainly Elder Advisors on the financial, so you can protect those assets so they don't go broke in a nursing home.
And I also love that it's never too late.
It's never
and that's
too
important.
late.
Some people probably just throw their hands up and say, I should have done this years ago.
Right. Yeah, and in the big picture, certainly that would be pre-planning. There's things that we can do way out so we can avoid those problems. But even in crisis planning, where they're going through $7,000 a month, I mean, stop and think. I'm very blessed. I still have both my parents, Russ and Connie Weiss. They'll be watching on YouTube today in Belpre, Ohio. And when Dad went to work in 1960 as a chemical engineer, a lab technician at Gulf Chemicals or Union Carbide, I think it was, I don't think he made $7,000 his first year. And to put that in proper context, we're going through that in 1 month in a nursing home. Yeah. And the other part I want to kind of really give a shout out to my parents is I'd like to believe, hopefully all of us do, that we were raised right. We had good, loving parents. I know I did, and I'm very blessed. And my parents always made me accountable for my actions, which today we don't really see a lot of that. And sadly, I don't really see that a lot in the estate planning field of helping families protect assets, because I've got 2 stories that just have happened in the last 14 days where the people that were attempting to help the clients did not take ownership. Example number 1 is this gentleman's wife. He lives in Kentucky. His wife is in Indiana nursing home. And he was referred to us from the nursing home. Denise Manicky was at the nursing home and was able to help the family kind of get together with us. And he told me, I literally had your clipping, because we're in the Courier Journal right now. We were in this morning's Courier Journal in Section A. And he said I had the clipping with me, but I went to my local attorney to get my will updated. So obviously they're talking about his wife's issue in the nursing home, and the attorney says, well, I can do that. You don't need to call these people. I can do that. Well, 3 or 4 months later, he's still paying $7,000 a month to the nursing home. And the most disturbing thing was he received a letter from Indiana FSSA, which is basically Indiana Family Services Medicaid. He received a letter dated January 4th of 2019. You were denied for benefits. Failure to qualify, failure to provide, failure for inform. I mean, just a whole laundry list of reasons why he was declined Medicaid. Well, it gets worse. He takes the letter to his attorney in Louisville, and to this day, he's still waiting for the attorney to call him back.
That's just no way to treat somebody.
Well, no, that's not taking responsibility. When I broke the neighbor's window, my mom took me to the neighbor, made me knock on the door. Hey, Mr. Smith, I broke your window. I had a paper route. I had to pay for the window. I took ownership and responsibility. Unfortunately, that just does not happen out here. And the tragedy is this poor man, he's just deer in the headlights. He's going through $7,000 a month. So he's so grateful that the nursing home, because, you know, a lot of people think, well, maybe the nursing homes don't really like elder advisors. Because no, the reality is they love elder advisors because we ensure they're getting paid. Because at the end of the day, they really don't care who's paying for the light bill, if it's the family or if the state is. They just want paid. So they referred this gentleman to us. So now we're unringing the bell, getting everything reconstituted so we can get an April 1 approval for Medicaid. It will happen. But it's tragic. It's so tragic that this man was just left adrift. The attorney would not return his phone calls for 6 weeks.
Well, think about the time that went by, too,
exactly.
right? I mean, it's huge.
It's huge.
The denial is one thing, but
right.
it's the time.
Well, and you know what? I'm not perfect either. I make mistakes. We dropped the ball on some paperwork submissions, so we're cleaning it up. But the point is, I'm still on the court. I'm not leaving the ball dribble out, walk off the court, turn the lights off, and just bury my head in the sand. I'm staying on the court. I'm taking my licks. I'm fixing it because this is not easy stuff. But you have to take ownership, and you have to do this pretty much 24/7, which is what we do. If you're going to be effective in protecting families' assets, you have to be aggressive. You have to be able to do this all the time, and that's what we do, and that's why we're offering the workshops next week, and we're delighted to still be able to have Mr. Langdon come back at McNeely Stevenson. He's the legal component of all of this. Steve will be there Monday night, 6 o'clock at the 4 Points by Sheraton. There's some great live feed from a previous workshop. There's, of course, Denise Manicky. Hey, she's our secret weapon. She was with Kentucky Medicaid for nearly 10 years at the L&N building. You know, and this delightful lady for 10 years would tell, I'm sorry, folks, Louisville, Kentucky, look at that beautiful man. If you come out and see me, I'm even more beautiful than the camera. Just come and see me live. Can you tell I love what I do?
Yeah.
I'm blessed.
I don't even know why I'm here today. You have got this. You're hosting. You might do the 6 o'clock news tonight.
Well, you know, but look, there's Mr. Langdon, but I love what I do.
Yeah.
I get up every morning. I go to a passion. I don't go to work. I don't go to a job. I love what I do. I make it fun. That does not mean I mistake it, you know, or ever mistake the seriousness of this, because it is a serious issue at hand. But I do have a little silliness about me, you know, shock, but you have to, because otherwise you want to cry. Otherwise, you want to cry.
Well, you're impacting people's lives. I mean, this is serious stuff. I mean, as far as what you're doing for people. And you're really helping people that are in a lot of times in a vulnerable state, or they just don't know.
Right. And that's what's really great. Steve, actually, he has a unique trait as an attorney. He has people skills. He's a nice guy. I've had people at workshops say, you know, that guy could tell me no, and I would thank him. And that says a lot about Steve, because he's actually very engaging. He empathizes with the clients. He actually went through Medicaid on a personal level, so it's definitely something personal to him. And what's really beautiful to hitch the wagon with Steve, to be able to send the clients to Mr. Langdon, is he's a former prosecutor. He knows where the courthouse is, because the reality is, if you're going to protect, you know, for me to make such a bold declarative statement and say, for husband and wife, we can protect all the assets, or for a single person about half, you've got to be able to know what you're doing, because it is not easy.
Yeah. You've got to back that up.
You've got to back it up, and Steve does with his skill set of being a former trial attorney, a former prosecutor. He is a trial attorney today, both federal and state court, both sides of the river, because it is not easy, but Steve makes it look easy with what he brings to the table.
Absolutely. Now, when we come back, we got a special guest. You want to tease that for
well, we did date briefly in high school and college, but I don't want that out. So this is not live television, is it? Because my wife will just be shocked.
Yes. We have not gone to break yet.
Thank you. Yes. But yeah, Fancy Fulton with Remax First in Indiana is our Medicaid realtor, talking about how, again, it's never too late, and we're going to turn his lemons into lemonade, because real estate's a component people forget about.
All right, awesome. We'll be right back on Wave 3 Listens Live. Stay with us. Back into Wave 3 Listens Live. I'm Michael Vanover. We are with a familiar face in the first segment, and he's back again. Larry Weiss is joining us, and now we have a third person on set, Fancy Fulton, joining us now. Fancy, how are you?
Good, Mike. Thank you.
Good, good. Now, you teased it before we went to break before.
I didn't know the camera broke because this was very inappropriate.
It comes back quickly. You've got to be ready, Larry. You've got to be on edge. Now, if you could, again, introduce Fancy for us.
As I like to tell folks many times, is I always want to surround myself with top talent. If you're going to protect assets so people don't go broke in a nursing home, there's a legal component. Obviously, Steve Langdon, McNeil Stevenson fills that. There's also CPA, accountants. There's also a real estate component. And Fancy with RE/MAX First for Indiana, much like Jeff Hurst with RE/MAX Properties East in Kentucky, they've become my Medicaid realtors. And what I mean by that is people are so often dismissive about a house. Well, there's no sense worrying about the house, we're going to lose it or stuff like that. So I'm going to kind of let Fancy kind of give a real life story of how she was able to turn what appeared to be a lemon into lemonade for the family with the real estate. So with that, Fancy's going to tell what happened with the real estate, because you were with the family and they were like, oh, let's not worry about selling it, just let the nursing home get it.
So actually in this situation, I was representing the buyer, and while looking at the property, we could tell it was a Medicaid property, the state that the property was left in, because the realtor didn't know how to set the tone on that. So I called the realtor to let them know what we were going to offer and why we were offering this number, which was quite a bit below market value. The realtor said, no problem, just submit the offer because Medicaid gets all the money anyways. And I was like, oh,
right.
no.
Warning, Will Robinson. Warning,
so,
stop.
I just wanted to connect her with my people to save, and I was representing the buyer. This had nothing to do with me. I just hated to know that this was a very seasoned, awesome agent. She just didn't know. She had never worked with Larry or this whole system.
Or being involved in Medicaid.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Well, we were talking earlier, Fancy, I know you weren't on camera, but you were over there to the side, and we were talking about how a lot of times people just kind of throw their hands up and they say, you know what, it's too late, or we should have started earlier and all that. They throw their hands up, and a lot of times when it comes to the property, as Larry alluded to earlier, how do you kind of work through that in the education process? And if you have any other tips or stories for our viewers about how it's maybe not too late and the money doesn't necessarily just go to Medicaid? So
I have a situation right now where I have 7 adult children that I am working with. That's a tough one.
Yeah, that can't
That's
be good.
a lot.
Yeah.
You know,
7 is my number, but not for this. That's not a good number.
And get this, 1 woman and 6 brothers.
Oh boy.
Ouch. So they're great people, but there's a lot of feelings, and so you have to be very delicate and just be very patient with them and just guide them, because at the end of the day, let's just say there was a realtor that one of them, they had a relationship with. Thank goodness they were smart enough to come to us and use us. So therefore, when I had to go tell them that we have this issue or that issue, they didn't think Mike was being favored because it was his friend realtor. And there was a lot of hard things I had to say to them and do with them delicately. And so they appreciate that.
That is quite the dance you have to do there. I mean, there's a lot going on.
And what Fancy's talking about is so true, because this is tough stuff. Because I had a similar deal here in Kentucky where, there's a reason that I refer my clients to Steve Langdon and McNeil Stevenson on legal. There's a reason why I'll refer the tax issues or questions to Rutherford Moss Accounting. There's a reason why I will refer the real estate issues to Jeff Hurst at RE/MAX Properties East for Kentucky or RE/MAX First for Fancy Fulton and Inez, because they know their job and they know what's going on here. And with my little war story in that regard it was a brother and sister, and I said, we need to list a property for sale. And I will ask, do you have a realtor that you work with? And more often than not, they don't. But then it came up and said, well, our grandson just got his real estate license. And I'm like, man, this is not the one you want Skipper to cut his teeth on the listing agreement, because there's just too many components. You got the family narrative, what Fancy was alluding to. This is grandma's house. There's a lot of emotion and stuff that just starts bubbling up. And with my issue, it blew up too. So then we had to go with, Jeff after all. But of course, the family didn't want to listen to what the doctor said. Right. Because they're good at what they do. They know we have to sell the property, because at the end of the day, it has to conform with the Medicaid rules for property value, or we have to.
We just had one of those.
Right.
We literally just had one where someone was going to buy it for quite a bit less than the assessed value, it can't happen. They would have got cut out of Medicaid not even knowing that.
Right. They would consider an improper transfer because they sold it for less than fair market value.
Okay.
So, and that's what, a lot of times people are dismissive. Well, just sell the house for squad, get rid of it. No, because Medicaid is going to look at that. The nursing homes pretty much pull the property deed records now. A lot of them will pull the property deed records to find out who the owner of the property is. Well, everything's online, so they know what pretty much the PVA property valuation assessment is, or the assessed value for Indiana. So they pretty much have a ballpark number anyway. So if the sales price that you sell it to your brother or to the guy down the street is pretty much off that mark, you're going to have to be taken to task on it and explain why.
You have to go in front of the Medicaid board. Steve and I.
You've done that.
Twice.
Well, you had the property up in Floyd's Knobs. It was like basically a hazmat.
Yes.
And in Fancy, who would think, I'm going to put something in a sentence that's really, who would think that Fancy can save the day by talking about a sewer system?
Yeah, right.
Or a septic tank.
Septic.
But she did
there's
because...
a lot here, though, and that's what you keep going back to.
Because that was a story where it sold for basically, what, the lot?
The lot.
And the state was going crazy saying, look, it should be worth $45,000. The neighbor bought it for 10, and then the state was going back and forth, and then you saved the day because there was no sewer lines.
Correct.
Right.
That justified that value.
Fancy, before we let you go, what does it mean? Larry's talked about partnering with you. What does it mean for you to be able to partner with elder advisors?
I tell you, it's just really a nice feeling to know that I'm with these folks that are truly helping. They're doing it for all the right reasons. Denise, oh my goodness, she does not get off the phone until she gets the yes.
Love Autumn too.
I was getting ready to plug Autumn in.
Hey Autumn.
It's just so nice. It's nice to see a team that is truly doing it for all the right reasons.
We love that. We love that. Now, Larry, you want to talk about the events coming up again next week?
Yes, thank you. Tammy said you were a little late on that intro.
Sorry, I'm getting there.
Thank you, Tammy. That's why you're here, babe. Yeah, Monday night, 4 Points by Sheraton on Crittenden Drive here in Louisville. Steve Langdon, elder law attorney Steve Langdon will be a guest speaker. And of course, Monday morning for the Indiana folks at the Hampton Inn on 1501 Broadway off Veterans Parkway. Don't go broke in a nursing home. It's never too late. Keep your minds open. It's never too late. Don't prejudge.
And I hear a rumor you're back Friday. Is that right?
Denise Manicky, my business partner, Executive Vice President of Corporation, will be here with Steve Langdon.
Oh,
Stevenson
this
Law
is
Firm.
perfect.
You got the dynamic duo. We're just a warm-up.
I love that.
You got the real ones
We're
on
the
Friday.
opening act. That's
right.
All right, we got more to get to. We'll be right back on Wave 3 Listens.